Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome out to tonight's weekly training webinar for all the members of Tax Sale Support. Thanks for taking the time to join us this evening. We're always happy to have you.
Yeah, absolutely.
For tonight, we're going to be covering different topics here, but let's first get into just news and updates again. So in terms of news first, the 3-day event. I know we've had questions about when we're going to be scheduling our next 3-day event. We know that we're going to be doing it over on the East Coast, somewhere in the DC vicinity, but we haven't set the date on that yet. We're still kind of waiting for things to settle down, open up.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll let you know, but if you are interested in it, let us know so we can get a head count of people that would like to attend. Also, we have some students that are graduating from the coaching program, so we're going to have a couple of openings coming up. So if you're interested in being part of the coaching program and working with us and the coaches, go ahead and just send us an email, or you can go ahead and fill out the coaching form there, and we'll get in contact with you and answer any questions you have.
Yeah, absolutely. So for tonight, we're going to talk about redemption deeds and how redemption deeds work and what some of the opportunities are.
Yeah, it's not really a topic that we talk a whole lot about, but it really is, a part of the system, one of the 3 systems that is used in tax sale investing. So we've talked about tax liens in the past, talked about tax deeds, and with redemption deeds, they're a little bit different than tax liens and tax deeds.
Yeah, they're unique. They have certain attributes that are unique to redemption deeds, and they don't really fit the system that other sales or other states fall under.
Yeah, in fact, around 15 or 16 years ago or so, me and Shade were going through and we were trying to figure out how each state worked. And there was these states like Texas and Georgia and some of these other states that weren't like either one of the systems. And at that time, the closest thing that people would call them was a hybrid state. So if you were looking through and there was anything about Texas or one of these states, they referred to them as a hybrid state. Me and Shade were just thinking about it, and these are redemption deeds, and that's kind of what explained it. And that's what we started calling them. And really since that time, it's kind of it's turned into at least a little bit of a universal term to describe this type of property.
Yeah,
or this type of sale.
Yeah, it does make the most sense here. But it's based on the way that the state laws are written and how they go about enforcing their property tax system. They are basically tax deeds that have a redemption period attached to them, and so generally with tax deeds, the benefit is that you're buying it outright, and that you're buying it free and clear.
Yeah, exactly. You are receiving a deed to the property. You are the new owner. And then with a tax lien certificate, of course, you have no ownership.
Mm-hmm.
You are only buying a certificate against that property. Now that lien does have a foreclosure right, but at that point you have no ownership whatsoever in the property. But redemption deeds are a little bit different. They're kind of both a hybrid of the tax lien and the tax deed.
Yeah, in fact, like the tax lien, there are certain elements of the investment that are time locked when it comes to redemption deeds, meaning that they're just like a tax deed in that you can buy them just like you would a tax deed at auction. But what that redemption period prevents you from doing is having the ability to sell it. So you don't have the immediate ability to take action with a property like that and simply sell it or unload it. You have to wait.
Yeah, now one thing about redemption deeds is they're generally going to have a shorter redemption period than a tax lien certificate. So it can range from 2 months to 2 years. A lot of the redemption deeds have a 6-month or a 1-year redemption period. So unlike a tax lien certificate where you may be waiting 3 or 4 years, with the redemption deed, in the case of Georgia, for example, or for most property in Texas, you're going to own that within 6 months to a year.
Yeah, the other thing that also varies between different redemption deed states is ownership rights during the redemption period. This is kind of a big deal too, if you're buying a deed, if you're buying a deed property, most of these states will give ownership rights, or at least possessive rights after the sale. For instance, in Texas, if you buy a property at the auction in Texas, you can take physical possession of the property after that sale, but the redemption period is going to prevent you from being able to sell it, basically, or transfer title in any way until until it's expired.
Yeah, another thing that makes redemption deeds unique is they offer a penalty return instead of your average interest rate return.
Yeah, which interest rate returns will accrue on a month-to-month basis, and basically, so if you take a certain rate, 12% would accrue at a rate of 1% per month. With a penalty rate, it's a flat rate that is not not dependent upon time period. It's a flat rate regardless of when it redeems.
Yeah, exactly. So, as we're looking at the difference between a tax lien, the tax lien does not have any ownership rights. 95% of the time, you're going to make back your money and your interest rate returns. But with redemption deeds, like Shade said, you're going to have a higher chance of owning the property. You need to research this property like you are buying the property, because you have, a 50% chance, and it could be lower than that or higher than that. But either way, you have a lot higher likelihood of you owning that property after that redemption period is done.
Yeah, it's also most likely going to require a larger investment than most of the liens will, because it's also more like a tax deed in that it's multiple years worth of taxes that are reflected in the opening bid.
Yeah.
So with tax deeds, with redemption deeds that are sold or offered through auction, they're pretty well sold like regular tax deeds.
Yeah, in most cases, they're going to use a premium bid method, which is just like any kind of auction. They're going to start the opening bid at the delinquent taxes, penalties, and fees. And then at that point, they're going to bid up the property just like a tax deed. So at that point, it'll go back and forth to whoever is the high bidder.
Yeah, and so to get an idea here, if the opening bid is $10,000, and then that's basically that is what's owed in taxes, penalties, and fees on the property. If it bids up to $20,000, then the investor has to pay the $20,000, obviously, because they won it from auction. But that additional $10,000 is known as the excess proceeds, or the overbid, and that money is not the county's money. It actually goes to the property owner or any other debtors that are owed on that property.
Yeah, and to kind of show you why, tax redemption deeds are less likely to redeem, in this case here, the property owner started with $10,000 delinquent taxes, but then it bid up to $20,000. Let's say that this was here in Texas. It was in Texas. Well, if the property owner wanted to redeem the property, they would have to pay back not the $10,000 in back taxes. They would have to pay back the $20,000, plus they would have to pay a 25% penalty. So what's that additional 5,000? Is that my math? For 20,000, whatever. They're going to pay an additional, $5,000 on top of the 20,000. So they're going to have to pay $25,000 to redeem the original $10,000 debt. So that's the reason with these redemption deeds, you're more likely to get the property than with the tax lien, because the debt can already accrue, or can accrue higher.
Yeah. So the idea with this is that you have to bid on these properties more like you would with tax deeds, where you are bidding to acquire the property, but you just simply don't have that ability to turn around and sell them, right away. You're basically just not going to have the quick exit strategy with the property because of that redemption period. But other than that, though, you should basically treat it like you're acquiring property.
Yeah, so when we talk about the due diligence steps and some of these other webinars and go through the 6 steps of due diligence and talk about those different steps, those are really the steps that you're going to go through with one of these redemption deeds. We're not going to just do like a tax lien search, or if we're doing a tax lien investment where we just check out some of the basics. We're really going to need to dig into the property because there's a chance we're going to own it.
Yeah. Now we talked about how the penalties worked as flat rates. The redemption period for these redemption deeds, they also can vary with states. So, for instance, in some places it is just it is a set time period for properties, but in many places they have separate redemption periods for properties that have homestead exemptions versus properties that don't.
Yeah.
So if a property has a homestead exemption on it, then meaning that it's owner occupied, then it may have a much longer. In the case of Texas, that's where the 2-year redemption period comes from, is for homestead properties and what other kind is it?
Farmland.
And farmland that has a 2-year redemption period to it. Everything else has a 6-month redemption period in Texas. So in Texas, the penalty rate is 25% annually. And essentially, what that means is that with the 6-month redemption period on most property there, if it redeems, you should be acquiring or earning that 25% in 6 months or less.
Yeah, one thing as well is in a state like Texas, they're going to go ahead and record the deed for you. In fact, what they kind of do is they go ahead and create the deed. They just don't fully record the deed, or you don't have, there's still that redemption period attached to it. But in other states like Georgia, you're actually going to have to foreclose on the property at the end of the redemption period. So it's a little bit like a lien there in Georgia, but it still has that redemption deed structure where it's bid up in price, similar, and then also offering that penalty.
Yeah, now there are some investment opportunities here within these redemption deed states. When we talk about redemption deed states, we're talking about Texas, Georgia, Hawaii, Louisiana, and Tennessee. I think that's pretty much everybody, right?
Yeah, well, and Louisiana is kind of, one of those, it's almost could be a little bit iffy. Some people consider it, some people don't, just because they're a little bit different because they got set up on French law versus English law.
Yeah.
But on the tax sale map, you can get an idea of which different states, are redemption deed states.
Yeah, I think Texas has probably the highest penalty rate at 25% per year. However, what that also means is that if it were to drag out, let's say you bought a property that had a 6-month redemption period, if for whatever reason you go to foreclose on it and it drags out for like another 5 months, you're still going to earn the same rate. You're still going to get that 25%.
Yeah, well, if it only had a 6-month redemption period, once that 6 month is passed, you'd have ownership to the property. But if it had a 2-year redemption period, let's say, that you bought one that was a homestead or it was farmland or something like that, you would make 25% the first year and you would make 25% the second year. So you could make a 50% return. So let's say that they redeemed the property a year and 1 day, since the deed was issued, you would make 50% in return off of your investment on that property.
Yeah, which that obviously can happen. I'm sure it has happened, but you can see how the chances of it happening go down, the longer it goes.
Yeah, and investors. Texas is the state that gives you the ownership rights during the foreclosure or while you during the redemption period, I should say. So during that time, you could rent the property out, you could live in the property. What you want to avoid doing is putting huge amounts of money into the property. You can even do, basic repair and maintenance, but other than basic repair and maintenance, the property owner won't have to pay any of that. And so in some cases, if you do maintenance, you can submit that to the county and the property owner would have to pay that in addition to their property taxes to redeem the property. But if you go and put on a new wing or put in new carpet or anything like that, and the property owner redeems, you're out of luck.
Yeah. Texas also has over-the-counter inventory. They've got properties they call struck-off properties that are available, but most all of their sales for the longest time have been conducted all as live sales. They've only recently started, to look into online auctions.
Yeah, there's a couple different counties that are, using real auction at this point. And with Texas, one thing that's nice about it is that the auctions happen every single month at the same time. So there's no guessing or wondering when the auction is. The first Tuesday of the month, that's essentially when it takes place. And here's some properties that came up at one of the past auctions that ended up getting sold.
What you'll find with all of those is just that the numbers are excellent in terms of you're looking at bid to value ratios that are well below 10%, and in some cases are even lower.
Yeah.
At least when you're talking about when we're looking at bid to value ratios on auctions that are going to take place or happen, all we can really base it on is what the opening bid amount is compared to the property's value. But if we can see that it's better than 10%, then it's always a good sign that there's profitability in that auction if you can acquire anything.
Yeah, well, and with each one of these properties, there could be good profitability. And at one of these auctions, if you're looking at one of these higher quality homes that could be lived in right now, you're probably going to end up paying an auction premium to get that property. But either way, it's going to be most likely the cheapest way you could ever buy property within that area.
Oh, definitely. You're definitely not going to find another way to get that property at that same price. Not from a bank. Nobody's going to, basically the other bidders, you'll compete against are what will determine the price you ultimately pay.
Yeah, exactly. I just wish those other bidders just didn't ever show up. It was just us.
Yeah, one thing that's kind of weird about how Texas does things is they have law firms that basically handle all of their tax sale stuff for them.
Most of them, at least.
Yeah, most of them. And so basically there are a couple of different law firms that you can go to for tax sale lists or for listings. Again, most of the auctions are still live. And so.
Yeah, exactly. And these are the three main law firms that handle the tax sales. Now, these links are within the over-the-counter section of the website, so you can go to Texas and click on any of these links, and it'll take you right here. But this is also a good resource if you're looking for struck-off list, resale list, anything like that. You can go back to these law firms, and some of them even have search tools and different things that you can look past and see which properties have been struck off. And because they have auctions each month, that means that there could always be new types of inventory coming up for the sale. But if there is good inventory, usually we've seen it get picked up pretty quickly after the sale. So if you are interested in tax sales in Texas or struck off properties, it's good to become familiar with some of these different websites and go back and look at them, after the auction to see any new properties that have come up.
Yeah. Georgia is another state that is classified as a redemption deed state. Their redemption period is 1 year, and their the penalty rate they pay out is 20% annually. And other than that, they don't have over-the-counter opportunities. I believe they I don't know if they do resales or if they
no, I mean, there's a few counties that we have that have over the counters, and they also do some land bank type stuff as well. But they don't have the same type of, over the counters that usually most of the properties, or a good portion of the good properties, will sell there at the auction. And that's one thing about Georgia as well, is, they don't, all the big counties, the counties don't have to have auctions each month, but they can have auctions each month depending on how much inventory they have available. And that's the same with Texas as well. So the big counties, they have auctions each month. Maybe some of the rural counties, maybe they do them 6 times a year, and maybe in Georgia, maybe there's counties that do them 4 or 5 times a year. But there is good opportunity. In fact, one of the very first success stories I had when I first started coaching was helping a woman, a elderly woman, be able to buy a condo in Georgia. I think she paid $3,500 for it. She waited the 1 year. After the 1 year, she got back in contact and helped her do the foreclosure. And she was able to essentially acquire this condo worth 80 grand at the time for under 5 grand.
Yeah, that is awesome. Something else that's unique about Georgia is is you are required. So in a state like Texas, at the end of that redemption period, the property's already gone through foreclosure. They basically, the county will just finish recording it. But in Georgia, the investor has to basically kind of foreclose on the property, or at least foreclose on the property owner's rights to redeem.
Yeah, exactly. It's called, blanking the name right now. I can't remember. There's a terminology where you are essentially something their right to redeem.
Yeah, foreclosing on
canceling their right to redeem.
Oh,
so
yeah.
some type of terminology, but essentially means you're canceling their right to redeem the property. And then at that point, you can go ahead and do the foreclosure, get the deed to the property, and then resell it.
Yeah, really, Hawaii is another state that is classified as a redemption deed
Yeah,
state.
the biggest problem about Hawaii is there's not too many properties that come up for sale there in Paradise.
No.
There'll be a couple of properties a year, usually that will come up in each one of the county. I think there's 3 counties there, if I remember right. But they don't have a huge amount of sales, but if they do have sales, this is the system they use.
Yeah. Tennessee is another state that also uses a redemption deed system. They've got a 1-year redemption period attached to it, and an interest rate they pay out, a penalty rate of 10%.
Yeah. Now, also Tennessee does have some surplus property, and when they don't sell the redemption deeds, I've seen sell deeds before in the past. But their traditional system is the redemption deed. But then sometimes if they don't have a property, sell it at the auction, then they'll hold on to them for a year and then offer them up at a deed sale. Or they'll also have surplus property, for example, in Nashville. There's land banks and different types of over-the-counter properties that are available in Tennessee.
Louisiana is also another state that is considered kind of a redemption deed state. And they have a redemption period of 3 years. They're also a tax lien state in a way, kind of.
Yeah, they're kind of closer to a lien. It's written a little bit different within their terminology, but they use a bid down the ownership method. So it's not necessarily the best state in the country to invest in, but they do offer their auctions online through Civic Source.
Yeah, in fact, Louisiana, they do have kind of a weird system here. Hold on, let me pull this down so I can get questions because I cannot see anything here. Hold on. We're closing the right of redemption. Oh, good. Oh, thanks for letting us know that there. Just letting us know that is foreclosing on the right of redemption there, and the interest rate there is a penalty rate as well. It's 20% flat rate.
Yeah, pretty good. Really, when it comes to redemption deeds, you can look at Tennessee, but really the best states are going to be Texas, Georgia, and then a third could be Tennessee.
Yeah, their redemption deeds are interesting. They've got very specific benefits and drawbacks. Although I think that probably one of the drawbacks certainly would be the added time associated with the investment. That's usually what draws or pushes a lot of people away, is being locked into it.
Yeah, the one advantage that you do have, I guess, is that you do get a higher penalty rate, at least within Texas and Georgia.
If you're redeemed, you're going to earn a pretty good rate of return, or you're going to acquire the property. Yeah,
and you're looking at a shorter redemption period as well. So at least, you can, most property in Texas is not going to be homestead or farmland. Most is going to be second property, something like that. And you've got to go through and do the homestead exemption, which is essentially a tax break to be able to qualify. And so you've got to go through certain qualifications, that being your only home, single family home, your main residence, to be able to qualify for that. And so when we look through the list, I would say, more likely than not, if there's a single family home, it's not going to be a homestead property.
Yeah.
But in states like Texas, in states like Georgia, it can be one of the best ways to get real estate and to buy real estate. And one thing that's nice about it is there is that constant flow of inventory where if you live within one of these states, you could plan on attending the auction. Like if you lived in, let's say you lived in Dallas, you could attend the auction every single month. And maybe not every month you're going to get a property, but you know, if you work that consistently, you're going to be able to get the very best deals on the properties that you want over that period of a year.
Yeah, you know, the other thing about redemption deeds is they're almost all located exclusive. I mean, they're all offered exclusively through live auctions. You know, I don't know if any of them yet. Maybe those ones in Texas are the
Texas, first. You know, there's a couple in Tennessee that we'll do on Civic Source, and you know, but really, most of them are going to be there at the county courthouse.
Yeah, it's pretty much all live auctions, which is going to limit, you know, the direct competition that you're dealing with as well. And that's always a good thing. What's nice too is that you're not ever competitively bidding down that rate you earn if it redeems. You know, it's always based on the you know, the bid amount. That rate pretty much stays the same no matter where you're at.
Yeah, exactly. And you're really bidding on it like, you know, like a tax deed with the intent of ownership. And then if not, you know, you're going to make back that penalty. But in a case like Georgia, you don't really have to do much until that year is over.
Yeah.
So, you know, you sit back, if you get if they end up redeeming the next month, you're getting that 20% penalty, and you can take that extra 20% in your initial investment and attend the next sale. And that's one thing that's nice about redemption deeds as well, is when you know, a lot of times if you get a property redeemed, you might have to wait until the next year before you can buy another property, you know, at the next tax sale. With these redemption deed states, they'll have multiple auctions, so you can always have a chance to bid at the next sale.
Yeah, that's a good point as well. They do have consistent, regular sales that are happening, you know, all the time. So I think there are things that unique benefits that can be presented through redemption deeds. The main thing that I think hits me is how you can find investment opportunities into property pretty much everywhere in the country.
Yeah, in fact, you know, we're looking at even some of the auctions got postponed here in Utah until the end of the month, and looking at possibilities that we can attend the sales. And I'm really kind of interested to see what happens with live auctions because of the, you know, the coronavirus and everything that's happened over the last couple of months. It's going to be really interesting to see when they do start scheduling auctions, what type of attendance are going to be coming out to these auctions, because me and Shade think that this could really be one of the best times, you know, since we've been involved in investing to purchase property, you know, this late summer and fall.
Yeah, well, and it may not last long. It may be like just this summer and then things are back to normal. Hopefully, you know, we'll see some the competition ease back a little bit. But yeah, it could be very short-lived.
You know, and part of it's going to be there's going to be a couple things that could factor into that. First of all, you have the excess of property, all of these auctions that haven't taken place that are going to start listing their auctions. You know, in addition to that, you're going to have people that may have been investing before, what we call, you know, fair weather investors or first-time investors. These different types of investors that many times will attend a sale, can sometimes bid up the price of properties. These people, we believe, are going to kind of drop off, and so there's going to be less actual people there at the auctions. So there's going to be more inventory and less people, which we think is going to provide some pretty good deals. And so if you can attend a live auction, we really think that this is probably one of the best times to do it because of the opportunity in getting some really good properties at some really good prices.
Yeah, we've been kind of in a holding pattern, waiting, and so we're still kind of waiting for some things to materialize. But you know, we think we'll see a lot of that happen here over the next 2 to 3 weeks, and the opportunities that do come should be pretty good. So anyhow, we're going to wrap it up a little bit early here tonight with some other obligations, but we'll be back here next week, of course. If you have any questions, feel free to send those in to us.
Yep. Thanks again, everyone.